Did you notice any big differences preparing for ER and now preparing for the Pitt?
Yes, in fact, that was one of the most interesting parts of the writing room at the very beginning was what didn't we do on ER that we would want to do now? And very quickly we started throwing things on the board, and before long we had 20 or 30 things that weren't even part of the lexicon 15 years ago when that show went off the air, whether it was fentanyl or gun violence or trans rights for patients, you know, things that are now in our nomenclature that weren't then, was exactly what we wanted to come at this show and attack.
Mel and Joe, we're going to ask you. So you've worked with a lot of physicians in your day, and you've worked with a lot of actors before, Joe. When Noah showed up, did you guys go, oh, he's awesome, or are we going to have some work to do?
I came on to help ER halfway through the first season. I wasn't there from the beginning, but when I walked onto the set on December 13th, 1994 for the very first time, the first scene was with Noah playing a med student with Ming Na, arguing and trying to one-up each other about the care of a patient with diverticulitis. So from the moment I met him, I knew we had something really special. And his grasp of the medicine, the procedures, and the emotion that goes along with patient care is just spot on.
Noah's knowledge of medicine is kind of stunning at this point. After all of these shows, we'll be sitting around and he'll come up with a diagnosis. I'm like, how the F do you know that? And he says, Mel, I play a doctor on TV.
Joe, I know that you have some videos that you want to show, so I want to give you the liberty here of when do you want to weave those in?
Sure, I think we'll start. One of the things we promised was a peek behind the scenes. So why don't we spend 2 minutes just showing you how our set was created, because our set really is one of the stars of the show. So if I can make the clicker work.
I think they got that.
Where the button is. Oh, this one.
The big one.
Now we're getting there. All right, so this is the story of the set. We shoot at Warner Brothers, where the Animaniacs live. And this is the Warner Brothers lot, which is rather huge. And we're on 2 stages, stage 22 and stage 21, which are basically monster warehouses. And when you go to see, to start the show, we use the ACEP Emergency Department design book with our production designer, Nina Ruscio, brilliant, and she designed this set that you can see the layout for here. So this is it in 3D, a perspective view, and here's our central work area, ambulance entrance, trauma rooms, behavioral health rooms, staff lounge, family room, peds, a glass brick wall that is very important because we're on 2 stages, and this is a transition from one stage, which is registration, triage, and as people walk to that glass brick wall, we can pick them up on the other stage, and that is what goes to triage. So when we start, this is what the set looked like, and we had 8 weeks to build it before we started construction. So the first thing that happens is that we hung a 20,000 square foot grid with lighting and air conditioning. One of the things you'll notice when we show you completed pictures of the set is there is a ceiling. Most television and film sets have no ceiling and the lighting is above, similar to stage lighting. We want to shoot as a documentary, so the lighting is built in. 689 lights, each one individually controlled for brightness and temperature. And the other thing that you may notice are these steel trusses. These steel trusses go all the way up to structural elements in the ceiling, and they hold 6,000 pounds of torque for the trauma towers. In the trauma room, to save floor space, we built a tower for ultrasound monitors and everything else you could need. So this is, again, the empty set, and 8 weeks later, this is what we have. Stealing architectural elements from Allegheny General Hospital in Pittsburgh, the marble pillars, central area, 3 corridors, north, central, and south. And here's one of the trauma rooms, and I think you can see the trauma tower all the way to the right. Trauma room here, and one of the things that, and our designer insisted that I show her staircase to nowhere. But here's the waiting room set. Again, the glass brick is to the other side. There's the glass block wall. And here's what the waiting room looks like without the usual 120 patients occupying it, standing room only. Yep. So we talked about the lighting. These are the guys who are controlling the 697 lights. The other thing is we have screens. We have over 100 screens. And none of those screens work without a video department that puts up vital signs for every patient. The big board. We don't have EHR. No, when we started the show, we approached Epic and Cerner and they weren't interested. So we recreate. They didn't know we were going to be huge. But we do fake medical records, all the playback for ultrasounds. Jalen Avila is here, Dr. Jalen Avila, brilliant ultrasound educator, supplies us with those ultrasounds. All the x-rays have to be put up. So all of this is working, and here's the lighting grid that they're working off of, and here's our video playback department, managing all the screens in the department. So that just shows you, and I would also add that on a given day, there's 240 people behind the scene working on the show, which often surprises. Here's all their screens that they're working on, and that's it for the set.
Thank you. Noah, question for you. Back in ER, there's a scene where you have a hard time starting an IV. In the Pitt, what if any of the procedures, what was really, really hard for you to master?
That IV scene was my audition scene for ER, actually. That's a significant scene in my life. There was some rush to kick off. I would say, the one thing that I had to battle more than anything else was everybody told everybody that I was really good at suturing. All these actors were waiting to see my suture technique, which, I now need glasses for. That's the biggest challenge, is I can't see quite as well as I used to. Just that, you mentioned in your talk, don't blink, because 30 years goes by very, very quickly. 30 years ago, Joe and I were about 200 feet from where we are now, doing this the first time, and it seems like yesterday. And yet I'm watching generations have absorbed that show and gone into this discipline and had careers and are now coming back and experiencing this new show almost at the end of that career. And we are inspiring another generation to go into this work, which is the most gratifying part of all of it, because we need you in these jobs. We need you so desperately in these jobs.
For Mel and Joe, as people who practice and have taken care of patients, we know it gets hard. What's the hardest part for you to get for Noah and the other actors in terms of, is it the medical language, which it must be, and I'll get back to that. No, it's like another language. But is it getting them to say the words right? Is it about the procedures? Is it about how do you feel? How do you act when things are really going bad? When you have a mass casualty? What's the hardest part of getting the realism?
Well, it's everything. And if you're an actor on a soap opera, you get to learn your lines and you get to act. So now we throw on top of that crazy technical gobbledygook that an actor would have no idea what they're saying. So you have to learn that technical dialogue. And then in addition to learning all your lines, cued to every one of your lines, you need to learn your technical moves. So it's chewing gum and walking taken to the infinite exponential degree. So it's really hard. And if we have time later on, we can go through the process of prepping all the actors to do a critical care scene. Because it takes a ton of work to get that going. And when we first started, it really looks like the Three Stooges, with people bumping into each other and not knowing what they're doing and things dropping. And suddenly, within 15, 20 minutes, it's a well-oiled machine, and they look like they're professionals who've been doing this all their careers.
All I would add to that is the next layer, which I think the Pitt focuses on maybe to a larger degree than ER did, which is the mental component and the emotional component of where you are at that stage in your career at that moment that we are depicting. So you may have a trauma scene that has an R1, an R2, an R3, an attending, and a resident. And every one of those people is experiencing that trauma differently. And part of the technical advisor's job is to not only tell us how to pronounce the words and how to hold the instruments and how to do the procedures, but to give you a little bit of insight at what your terror level is, what your cockiness level is, what the interpersonal dynamics between departments can be, so that those energies feel very specific and very real when you're watching it as well.
We would love to say that you captured the spirit of surgeons incredibly well.
And ortho, come on.
Yeah.
We really give ortho too.
Strong as an ox and twice as smart.
I gotta say, if you think the Pitt is medically accurate, it's all because of Joe. He is just, I'm gonna blow some smoke up his butt because he's my boss. But Joe was my attending 35 years ago at UCLA. And
I get to say I taught Mel everything he knows.
And he was great attending back then, and I've had to start this new job where he lives in these two worlds like nothing I've seen before. He lives in the world of emergency medicine, and he can trach you and put in your chest tube, but then he's on set and he's teaching people like me who don't know anything how to teach actors to do things, and he's got another residency that he's running at Warner Brothers right now with a bunch of docs, fresh out of residency that are chief residents are super smart, but day one, they also don't know a damn thing. And he has to teach them how to teach the actors. It's really amazing to watch. And then the next season, they're the experts helping Joe with the actors. It's really an amazing thing. And I don't think that Joe Sachs has gotten enough love from our specialty because of these shows. Emergency medicine went from nobody wants to do that to this thing that everybody wants to do. And I want to thank Joe for 35 years.
And I can thank Mel, because if our show is seen by 10 or 20 million people, I did the math, and Mel's continuing education in emergency medicine has affected over 1 million patient visits over the years. So thank you for that,
So, Noah, there's an old article that talks about when you were directing ER about making the medicine invisible but believable. With the Pitt, what's the philosophy about the medicine and the people and what you want people to feel is believable?
Well, you want, in some ways, the medicine is the soundtrack to the show. You know, we don't have music, which was a novel thing to approach this show with, by taking out things that felt artificial and only living in an environment that is totally realistic. We were hoping the immersion experience would be that much more intense. So fidelity to detail is in continuity, because we tell our story in real time, are the two biggest focuses when we go to work. I don't know if I answered your question.
It was about making the medicine believable but invisible. And what
just takes practice, you know. I will say that it's very rare to get a cast that is as committed as this cast is. Lightning doesn't strike that often, and these chemistry experiments don't work as often as you would like them to. But this cast showed up with the right sensibilities of wanting to be really good and to look proficient, and they only had 2 or 3 weeks to learn how to do a lot of this stuff, to look like they were a third year or fourth year. And their level of commitment, taking suture kits home and practicing on pig's feet or chickens or whatever, and coming in and egging on each other to be better and to strive for more. is a quality that's super rare. So I give a lot of credit to this, the temperament of this cast and their work ethic.
And recognized by the Emmys for having the award for best casting. So
Yes. I'm good with introducing this. Yeah.
I was gonna give you a lead in though, Joe. So they throw up here. Tony asked Joe about procedures to cue the video. So I guess I want to throw in there. You taught people really well. We want to go back to that PGY1 surgery intern doing the Roboa thing. Yeah.
Desperate times.
Joe.
At any rate, Mel and I are 2 of 7 doctors who work on the show. Greg Moran, who brilliant emergency physician, internal medicine, infectious disease, retired head of emergency medicine at Olive which is part of the UCLA program. We are involved with the writing. On set, we have 4 emergency physicians because they do every 4th episode on set. It takes 108 hours to film 1 episode. And in addition to that, they spend about 40 to 50 hours prepping. So they're prepping for 2 weeks where they can work part-time. They're on set for 108 hours and then they get 4 weeks off. So in order to maintain their practice, these 4 physicians are doing that. But we thought we'd show a little bit of the procedures that we did during the first season. My concern that we got when we got picked up for season 2 was we're going to run out of material for Robert's sketches. Fortunately, not the case. But this is just for those of you who've never seen the show. For 2.5 minutes, you'll see some of the highlights of the procedures, and then we can talk about how we actually make these things work. So let's take a look at the video.
Ready?
Knife leaves a tray hook behind, so you can't miss. Right? Just good. Slide in the introducer. Okay. The tracheal rings. Good. Bob's your uncle.
That was incredibly fast.
Balloon is up.
Connecting the 2 incisions. That ought to do it. The pressure's already down to the 30s.
Let's have a look.
All right, 3 lap pads on each side of the bladder, deep as you can.
Deeper retractor.
Named for John Blair Deaver, Philadelphia surgeon who revolutionized abdominal surgery in the early 1900s.
Bone suction is ready.
My head is out.
You've got a dead bug in your ear. Cockroach.
Advance through the cords.
Good. Good job.
Tap knob from pneumomedius sidum, about to cut global incisions to release the air.
Do it. Infraclavicular. Yeah. One, two, three. Gentle, gentle, gentle. Then we have flush now.
And clamping.
Okay, it's venous blood out the right femoral into ECMO for oxygen, then pump back into the left femoral artery.
Stop the Lucas. Meds?
Dr. Santos, how do we cut through the intercostals?
Through the superior rib to avoid the neurovascular bundle.
That's great.
Finish that retractor.
Okay. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, Mr. Spectosia, we're here to help you. We're here to help you. Come on. What do I do?
So I think some of the procedures that I included in there include moments where you see the patient's face and the patient is real. Like for instance, the vaginal delivery, the camera tilts from the woman's face to the baby being delivered. So we had to find an actor in active labor who could just run to the set for her. That's not true. They were all lined up. Pitocin. No, so that is a tribute to our makeup department, to our special effects department, to our property department. That woman, her real body submarined under the gurney, hidden, and there was an entire prosthetic of her legs, perineum, abdomen, with a puppeteer underneath pushing the baby out. And it looked seamless. Likewise, the pneumomediastinum that created massive subcutaneous emphysema, the blowholes, thank you, Mel. You saw the person's real face. And one of the things that the makeup department can do is blend prosthetics into the body. And it's an incredibly time-consuming process to make it look real. But we do make it look real. And it takes a village. It takes amazing talent on set. That blowhole incision was part of the mass casualty episode where we cared for 100 patients in 2 hours. And one of the things we wanted to do was to give each doctor a moment of new, different success, whether it be picking up an occult liver injury, whether it be the blowholes, or using the EZ-IO for a craniotomy when the pupil was blown.
That last clip involved an item called the Wizinator, which is available on Amazon.
Yes, the Wizinator is a perfect phallus that I believe is sold such that those who need to have witnessed urine testing for rehab follow-up can be observed and have pure urine stored inside to fill the cup. Not that I recommend that.
Two questions. Let's go first. Noah, you came from the fictional world of ER. Mel and Joe, you came from the real world. When did the three of you go, this is special, that there's something, this is not just going to be another show, that there's really something special here?
Well, I will say that this show was sort of born out of what happened during COVID for me, which was, it was a work stoppage and I was home and I was suddenly getting a lot of mail from first responders and practitioners who were telling me what it was like out there in the trenches and thanking me in some ways for inspiring them to go into this career, but more just sort of checking in and letting me know that it was really hard. And I was overwhelmed by that mail and I didn't know what to do with it. So I wrote John Wells a letter and I said, I think there might be another story to tell here. And if you ever want to scream something from a mountaintop about what's happening, I'd volunteer to shout it. And it is a love letter. That's exactly what it is. So when we got that first blush of response from all of you about that we had proven our thesis and we had done right by you, that's when it felt really gratifying for me.
Yeah. So I got pulled into a meeting with John Wells, Scott Gemmell, and Noah Wylie in 2023, having worked through the peak of COVID, the pandemic, and and the question, of course, is, well, what's new? And the answer is everything. And you saw in the very first moments of our first episode, waiting room medicine, boarding, and I know the response to the Press Ganey score from the hospital administrator struck a chord with many. So we wanted to make it real, and thanks to Mel, I brought writers and Noah to live grand rounds of MRAP to give them a sense of the specialty, of the educators, of the depth of field. And this is how the Pitt differs from ER. ER was actually written based on the experiences of Michael Crichton, brilliant writer, late great writer. He graduated from Harvard Medical School in 1969 and never practiced medicine because he had great success as a novelist. He learned emergency medicine in the Harvard hospitals when there was no specialty of emergency medicine. The internist saw you for chest pain, the surgeon saw the belly pain, the peds saw the kids, and pelvic complaints, OBGYN residents got called, and the surgeon was up in the operating room who was the head of the department. So he wrote this novel called 5 Patients in 1970, turned it into a screenplay in 1974, and that really was the basis of the pilot of ER, which aired in 1994. So there was a great outlash of criticism of the show, because when it aired 25 years after the specialty of emergency medicine, it did not respect the specialty in terms of the residency, the research, the faculty. And they tried to change that as it went on. But this show, from its creation, in its DNA, is the real deal about what goes on and what the specialty is really like. So I'm very proud of that.
I got a call from Joe. I was a medical consultant for about 6 or 8 years at the end of ER, just chatting with Joe a couple of times a week about cases, and then he called me and said, Mel, there's this new show that the team wants to put together. And he started to tell me about it, and this idea of doing it 24, hour by hour, and the realism that they wanted to bring to it, and the stories that they wanted to tell. And then I met Noah, and we chatted as faculty about what was going on, and about, no, we're fucked. Yeah. And it's like, what? We're dying here, like literally dying. And to see his response and to see how much he cares about the specialty was amazing. And again, this team, these people have just done a love letter to you, to what you do every day, so that you can go home and your kid can say, Mum, is that what you do? And you can say, yep, that's what I do. So thank you.
Now you mentioned a love letter to us on behalf of the college and really the specialty of emergency medicine across the globe. If you reach under your seats, each of you have a little gift from us. And if we can advance this.
A Wizinator.
Not a Wizinator. Okay, that's being shipped separately from Amazon for you, Joe. But if you look up on the screen, you want to again recognize the unique contribution, the unique part of the telling of our story from Noah and Joe and Mel. So you see the words up on the screen, and for each of them, there are a set of ACEP scrubs, their own ACEP white coat. And Noah, for you, we thought that the hoodie was getting a little bit worn, so we have an ACEP zip for you that you might want to...
Hello, yes. And there's a gift for a couple of very special people in the audience. If you look under your seat, 2 of you have a blue folder under your seat, and you have won a full-size poster of the Pitt signed by Noah, which can be collected. Raise your hand if you're finding a blue folder.
Wait, can I check under this seat?
And that can be picked up at ACEP Central.
Yes.
That is in the exhibit hall. And likewise, there'll be another 2 posters for the 2 top winners on the leaderboard. If you're playing the game on the ACEP meeting app, the top 2 winners will also receive that.
Great. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, please